Hi there, welcome to another edition of Dwayne Allen Guitar Concepts. Good to be back again. I'm going to do today's lesson. We're going to call this an intermediate level here. I'm going to talk about the modes today. This is one of the most commonly covered subjects on jazz music and jazz guitar, and they're all over the internet, and you probably will find like 5,000 videos on, what are modes and how do you use them and everything. And it's one of those things where I was thinking, do I really need to do another video on the modes and what they are and everything? And then I thought to myself, well, I kind of need to do that so that when we do some of the other lessons that I'm going to have in my series, you'll know what I'm talking about and you don't need to constantly look elsewhere for what modes are. I really enjoyed working on the modes of some of the more stranger scales of like the harmonic major, harmonic minor, things like that. But today I want to start with the basics of the modes of the major scale, okay? These are important to know if you're basically, I would say if you're learning jazz and you want to get into jazz improvisation, definitely need to know these. But, they're important for any musician to know. If you're a rock musician or a pop musician or you play blues or fusion or funk or whatever, these are just concepts that you're going to use in the music. So, it's one of those things that I think every musician should know what modes are, okay? So what is a mode? Basically, a mode, to make it easy, is a scale within a scale. So if you're doing the major scale like this, I'm doing C major. I like to teach things in C because C is the easiest key. It's all natural notes, okay? If you're doing C to C, and then you say, for instance, you go on the second note of the C major scale, and you play from the second note to its octave inside of C major, that's a mode, okay? And then you do the third note to its octave, that's a mode. You get the idea? And then you can do a mode on every note of the major scale. There's 7 notes in the major scale: C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then it starts over again, right? So there's 7 modes, okay? Each mode has a name. The one thing that I want you to get out of this lesson is that you're going to learn the names of each mode, but I really want you to understand the characteristics of each mode. That's the really important thing. Because, everybody knows, oh yeah, the Phrygian mode is the 3rd mode, or the Lydian is the 4th. But do you know the function of those modes? That's the thing, is you gotta learn the function of each mode so that you can use it for improvising and everything. Okay, so the first mode, we're gonna start on the first note of C, and we're gonna go to its octave. That's just the C major scale, right? That also has a modal name called the Ionian Mode. So I'm not going to spell these, you guys can look these up, but it's the Ionian Mode, which is the same thing as the C major scale. So it's the first mode of the major scale, Ionian, okay? So let's talk about the second mode. The second mode is the second note of the scale to its octave. Okay, we're gonna use C as we said, C major as an example. So D to D, okay? That's the Dorian mode, okay? The Dorian mode is from D to D if you're in the key of C. And I want to talk about the characteristic of each mode, okay? So a Dorian scale or mode, you can call it a scale or a mode, either one. A Dorian scale is very similar to a minor scale, but you're going to raise the 6th. So what does that mean? So if I play D Dorian against D natural minor, there would be a difference of 1 note. And what that would be the Dorian would have a raised 6 of the natural minor. So if I play a D natural minor, and I raise the 6th, that's the D Dorian. Okay? So even though the Dorian mode is the second mode of the major scale, what I want you to think about is the Dorian mode is similar to a natural minor, but you raise the 6th a half step, okay? I actually don't even think it's the most important thing in the world for you to know, oh, the Dorian's the 2nd mode, the Mixolydian's the 5th mode. It's good to know that, but it's more important to know where it's similarities to and what the function of that mode is, okay? All right, so the next mode is the Phrygian mode. So it goes the third note to its octave. Okay, E to E in the key of C. Now, the Phrygian mode is going to be like a minor scale, natural minor scale, with a flat 2. So if I played an E natural minor, it's an E natural minor. If I flat the 2, now we have an E Phrygian. Okay, you got the idea? So a Phrygian is like a natural minor with a flat second. Okay. The fourth mode of C, or fourth mode in general, is the Lydian. In the key of C, it's F Lydian. So it's F to F in the key of C. Okay, so an F Lydian, or a Lydian in general, is like a major scale with a sharp 4. So if I play F regular major scale, and I raise the fourth, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So a Lydian is a major scale with a sharp 4. Okay? Alright, the next one in the key of C is G to G. That's the fifth mode. That's going to be Mixolydian. So a Mixolydian is like a major scale, but you have a flat 7th. So if I played a G major scale, okay, and I took that 7th and I lowered it a half step, then we have a G Mixolydian mode. Okay, so that's the fifth mode, Mixolydian. The sixth mode is very easy because the sixth mode, if we're in the key of C, it's A to A. Okay, the sixth mode is basically a natural minor scale. Okay, for those of you who know a little bit of theory, you'll know that. And when you're in a major key, if you go to the sixth note of that major key, that's the name of the relative minor. Okay, so in other words, in the key of C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the sixth note is A. A natural minor is the relative minor to C major. So any major scale has a relative minor that's a sixth away. Okay, so the sixth mode is the Aeolian, same thing as the natural minor. Okay, so just like the Ionian mode is the same as the major scale, the Aeolian mode is the same thing as the natural minor scale. Got the idea? Okay. The last mode is called the Locrian Mode. Okay, Locrian Mode. In the key of C, it goes B to B. Okay. This scale is similar to a minor scale, but you actually have to flat the second and the fifth by a half step. So if I played a B natural minor, it would sound like this. Okay, but if I flat the second and the fifth, it's going to sound like this. Okay, so those are the names of each modes, and like I said, I want you to, even though it's good to know the Locrian's the 7th, the Aeolian's the 6th, that kind of stuff, that's important. But the most important thing that you should learn about each mode is what are its characteristics. Okay. So just to rehash, the Dorian mode is like a minor scale with a raised 6. Okay. The Phrygian is a minor scale with a flat 2. The Lydian mode is a major scale with a sharp 4. The Mixolydian is a major scale with a flat 7th. Aeolian is the same thing as the natural minor, and the Locrian is a minor with a flat 2 and a flat 5. Okay, so we learned about each mode, what their name is, and what their characteristic is. Now, the most important thing that you need to know with each mode is what chord does each mode go with, because the whole point of learning these modes is that they're new scales that you can use for improvisation. So even if you're, you know, not jazz but blues, rock, whatever, let's see, like jam band music, a lot of jam band music will be like, you know, one kind of key and you'll jam out on it or something. Or like if you listen to like a Santana record, like Oye Como Va, you know, that's like an A Dorian vamp. So it's kind of cool to learn these scales, okay? All right, so let's talk about what kind of chord each mode goes with. Okay, the first mode, if you're in jazz and everything, you're basically going to use the Ionian, which is the same thing as the major scale, over a major 7 chord. Okay, so if you have a C major 7 chord, you would use C major or C Ionian. Okay, now the second mode, the Dorian mode, you would use over a minor 7 chord. Okay, so if I'm playing a D minor 7, you'd use D Dorian. Oops, sorry. That kind of thing, right? Okay, the Phrygian mode you can also use over a minor 7, but this is kind of an enigmatic mode. It's kind of a strange mode. It's not used as much as the other modes. It's used in some of the later jazz, like from the late 60s and 70s, like ECM music and stuff. So technically, you can use an an E Phrygian over an E minor 7. Right? But most people don't use the Phrygian like that. What they'll actually do, and I can do a whole lesson on the Phrygian mode, but what they would do is they would play a chord where it's like an F triad with an E in the bass. Like that kind of a sound, or like a, and then they would use the Phrygian. That kind of sound. It's got kind of a dark, mysterious kind of sound. It's a very cool sound. Okay, now the Lydian mode goes along with a major 7. And technically it would be like a major 7 with a flat 5. So if you were doing like an F major 7, you can use F Lydian over that for sure. Sounds cool like that. Or you can play a major 7 flat 5 chord. Got kind of a more of a mysterious sound, okay? The Mixolydian mode is what you would use over a dominant 7th chord. G Mixolydian, dominant 7, dominant 9, dominant 13, any kind of dominant chord, you would use a G Mixolydian. I'm throwing a little chromaticism in there. So, Mixolydian goes along with dominant 7th. Aeolian, which is the natural minor, you can use with a minor 7. Okay? You're going to find that most jazz musicians, when there's a minor 7, they're usually going to play a Dorian and not an Aeolian. An Aeolian has a very kind of a European classical kind of sound to it. So it doesn't sound like when you're playing a minor 7 or minor 9 or minor 11, a lot of people would prefer the Dorian. And if you use the Aeolian, which is the natural minor, it has a little bit of a different sound. It almost has more of a Spanish sound to it. Later on, you'll see, like, once again, like I talked about with the Phrygian, late 60s, early 70s, ECM music, then you'll hear more Aeolian sounds, like... That's kind of a cool sound to it. but for the most part, people usually use Dorians over a minor 7. Okay, last one, Locrian, B Locrian. You would use a Locrian over a minor 7 flat 5. So if you have a B minor 7 flat 5, you would use a B Locrian. All the notes of the Locrian scale fit the arpeggio of the chord. Here's one thing that I tell all my students to do as you're learning each mode. When you're improvising, you should be very, very comfortable with all of these modes, and mostly by the sound of the mode. So what I tell all my students, let's say you're learning your Dorian mode, right? I would use a looper. If you don't have a looper, get a looper. A lot of delay pedals have a loop function, or you can get like a looper pedal, like TC Electronics Ditto, or I have one of those. But you lock in a chord, and it doesn't have to be a rhythmic thing. It could be like free flowing, or it just floats, kind of like a pad. And then you just improvise over that one chord using that mode, and you just get used to that sound. You just get used to the sound of that mode. Every mode, every scale has a color to it, and you want to have, as you get more advanced as an improviser, you want to keep, adding to your color palettes. Like some people only know 2 or 3 scales. That means they can only paint with 2 or 3 colors. Now, a lot of great artists can make a lot of great art with 2 or 3 colors, but the more colors you have, the more interest you can have, okay? So maybe you lock in your minor 7 chord and you jam with a Dorian. Then you do the same thing, like let's say you want to get that Lydian sound. You lock in a major 7 sharp flat 5, or even a regular major 7, and you just practice your Lydian to it. You do that with each of your modes so that you become familiar with them, you get used to the sound in your head. Then when you go to plug them in tunes, you'll be ready to go and you'll be comfortable with each mode, okay? One thing I recommend doing is, as you're learning modes, because these are the modes of the major scale, obviously, you should eventually learn how to do the modes of the harmonic minor, melodic minor, harmonic major, and then it gets more and more complex. What I usually tell my students to do is have like a little chart and write down, okay, major 7, what are my choices of scales that I can use to solo over this? And you would put major scale, which is Ionian, and now we added another one, Lydian. So you have 2 choices, major scale, Lydian, right? And then if you put minor 7, what are your choices? Well, technically we have 3, Dorian, Phrygian, and Aeolian. We have 3 choices that you can use for a minor 7 chord. The first choice most of the time is usually going to be Dorian, but you can use the Phrygian and the Aeolian as well. So now you have 3 color choices for that one chord. Then you have a dominant 7 chord, right? So now we have Mixolydian. So now you have a chord that you can use for that. And then if it's a minor 7 flat 5 chord, now you can put the Locrian there, okay? And as you learn more modes, you're just going to have more choices. So instead of saying major scale or major 7, I have 2 choices. Well, then eventually you'll have 4 or 5, and then for for a dominant 7, you might have 5 or 6 or 7 or whatever it is. You're just adding choices to the colors for each chord so that you have more choices and more colors to the sound. That's all it is, okay? So these are the modes and the functions of the major scale. I hope I didn't throw too much at you today, but it's a good lesson to have, and I hope that my video was different and that I talked about the function of each mode, because I think that's the most important thing you need to know, is the function. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you enjoyed the video, please hit subscribe and hit like if you like it, and leave any questions or comments for me. And thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time. Have a good one.